Hi, my name's Jeff Rhodes, and welcome to another video on creating business applications with Office 365. So kind of a long video today, but hopefully you'll find it useful. So first, quick info on the book. You can get on Amazon or wherever you buy books, and you can see it right here. And we scroll down today, it's number 28. So appreciate people who have purchased that. Today's info is newer than the book, so it's not in there, but that gives you the basics. So what we're going to do today is really talk about how we can upload files from PowerApps using Flow or Power Automate, save those into a SharePoint library, and send an email of the links. So before I get into that solution, let me first say that a lot of this came from my colleague Anthony Apodaca, who I tasked to try to figure this out, and he did that, and it works great. And he in turn found a couple of these videos that I've watched as well. So let me point that out. If you don't subscribe to these gentlemen, I would recommend it. Shane Young has a lot of great videos, and he did it just over a year ago for uploading a single file to a document library. And he got from somebody else, he mentioned we kind of all build on each other, a nice little hack that makes that work. And then one that's more recent from this past August, Reza Doriani, hopefully I'm saying that right, shows how to upload multiple files at once, which is closer to what we're doing. He did those as attachment to a SharePoint list, but it's similar, and hopefully you'll find those useful. So let's jump over to Office and explain what's going on. I've done a couple videos already. We're building this expert system at the Air Force Academy in our Dean of Faculty area, and basically there's some SharePoint lists involved with some actions and tasks and so forth, and I've done some videos on some of the challenges. But this one, when we showed it to the Director of Staff, he's like, well, what about if, because I should mention, one of the features, it can either go into a ticketing system or we can send an email to the shop concerned. And in that case, the attachments the user put in would be emailed to along with them. And say, well, what if those attachments have privacy information in them? We're like, ooh, yeah, that's a problem. So we kicked around some ideas, and I thought, well, how about if we send the link to the file instead? But to do that, we've got to get the file from PowerApps somewhere to share it from, and obviously SharePoint's the obvious choice. So that's how we went down this path. So I've got a document library. It's got a few documents already, but we're going to try to save into this document library and then send an email. So I've got an app created. I'll show it to you, and then we'll build it from scratch, and that's what will take a little bit. But let's go ahead and show it. So we'll play the app, and you see we've got an attachment control, and get to the right spot here. So I'll go to Documents and Videos. Get it right. All right, so I've got an image, picture of the book, and an Excel file, and I can put as many of these as I want. And then I've got this variable. We'll build this later, but the gist of the solution is that if you link into this, you get a URL when you try to get this attachment. But if you link an image control, or in this case a gallery, to the attachments control and use the JSON function, you can get to the base64 value of the file. So I've got that with this variable. So if I click it here, you'll see, okay, this is if I'm reading the gallery directly, and that's not useful to us. But if I link this gallery, I say I link to the attachments control directly. If I link to the image, so I link the gallery to the attachments and then link this to the gallery and do the same JSON function, I can get the type of file and I get the base64 encoding of it. And that's the thing that we need. So that's the entire image. If I did it with the Excel spreadsheet, it would do it. So we'll show you that. In our real app, we've got this stored in SharePoint where the files are supposed to go and so forth. But for testing, I'm just going to send all this to Flow and let Flow send the email and because it's looping through the attachments anyway. No sense to really go back to PowerApps to do it, even though you could send it there. So I'll say test from video. And then we want the body to be HTML. So I'll just say some formatted. If I could spell it. Make that bold. And we'll highlight this in like yellow. There we go. All right, so let's submit it. Oops, make sure it clicked it there. There we go. And I'll check for it over on my email as well. There we go. So what we've got in, look at it first here if I reload. So there's our two files. So we got question results and the image. So that one came through already. And here's the email. So it came through and it gave us the link to it. You can kind of see the URL. So if I click on it, that one, I can see the image. And if I click the other one, it shows up the Excel file. So perfect. That's what we're trying to do, and it's all formatted and also authenticated so that if I hadn't been logged in, it would prompt me to be authenticated. All right, so let's see if we can. Oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Let's see if we can build this from scratch. So we'll come over here and build a Canvas app. We'll just call it upload files from video. Now Shane's shown in one of his other videos on how you can get an attachment control out of a form. So I'm going to show that real quick too, because you can do an images control, but then it defaults to images, which isn't quite what you want. So I'm just going to add a form, and then I'm going to link that to a data source. And this part is solely just to get our hands on the attachment control. So bear with me for a second. And it really doesn't matter what I pick here because I'm not really going to use it, but I'll pick one from my last video. And then I make the data source task list. And then now I can add attachments. There we go. And then if I go back, oops, over here, I can get this guy and copy it. If I go over here and paste it, that's what I want. Now I can get rid of this whole form. And I could get rid of that data source too, but I'm going to rename this and just call it attachments control, like that. So far so good. I'll make that a little smaller because we don't need to see that much. Then I want to add a gallery. I'm not going to add a data source yet. I'm going to make this smaller. I only need a couple of these. Oops. Be a little challenging to move that sometimes. All right, we'll put that there. Now let's talk about collections here. So what I want to do is have a collection of these attachments. So I'm going to do on the add file and remove file. So I'm going to say clear collect, which clears the collection and then creates it. And I'm just going to call it call attachments. And grab all the attachments. So that just builds me a collection. And I'm going to do the same thing. Oops, not sure why. Oh, it's sorry, I got ahead of myself. Not clear collection, but clear collect. That's what I want. And then I'm also going to do when they delete when they remove a file, just so it's always updated. And then I'll take this the gallery and just use that collection. There we go. And this guy will be this item dot value, which is the attachment itself, and then the title's already the name, and I don't need the subtitle. All right, so that will take care of that. Let's build our variables that I had, so we'll put it down here somewhere. We'll just say set bars. And I've just found it works better to just set some variables to show this. So I'm going to have one of them be the JSON value of the attachment. We call the JSON function, and I just get the first one just to show. So I'll get the attachments control dot attachments. Oh yeah, and that's the first one, and then the value. So that's one variable. And then I'll set another one, and I'll call it JSON value image. And we'll get that out of the gallery. So that'll be JSON again. First, oops, gallery one dot all items. Dot image one dot image. Then I found when I played with that, I liked it better. It kind of, if I say include binary data, it really, I don't know that it really matters. There we go. So let's see if we can format that a little bit so that shows it a little better. Okay, so I got two variables. And this one, like I said, I could have included binary. It wouldn't make any difference. So let's go back here. Now I can create a couple labels. Right about there. And I'll make that one JSON value attachment. And we'll do another one. Turn on the scroll bars there because it's going to be long. I'll call that JSON value image. All right, let's try it so far. So let's save. All right. Whoops, something it doesn't like. Oh, okay, yeah, we got to fix a few of these things when I pulled it out. So we'll just say color.black. A few of these because I pulled it out of the middle of that thing. So it's got a stuff where it's doing. We'll just change that to 5. And we'll say display mode. Edit. Oh, I don't even need that. Okay, there we go. And we'll just call it attachments. All right, there we go. So let's try it. So remember, let's just do that first one. We can do the second one. Okay, so far so good. If I set the variables, looks like I overlapped those a little bit, so I'll fix my thing, but it's working. Notice that first JSON just put some quotes on it, but this one got the whole binary because, again, we referenced this control right there rather than straight from there. So that's kind of the main insight from Shane's video. So let's move these over a little bit just so they're not on top of each other. Oops. All right, just kind of move that over a little bit. And let's do the rest of the app. So we want to go ahead and just create the part where we do the emails and so forth. So in the actual app, we do this in the in our SharePoint list, but just for making it quick here, we'll say email. Text input. Whoops. And I do want to rename that one so that we can be clear which one's doing. So we'll just call it email. Copy these. Call that display name. Oh, and by the way, I don't like when this says oops. Oh, the default, yeah. So let's get rid of the default because then it just says text input on each one of these, which I don't like. There we go. And we'll rename this one to be display name. And we'll call that one subject. And then we'll do one more label, call that body. And for the body, we want that to be rich text, which will get converted to HTML. So we'll just make that a little bigger. Something like that. And we'll call that body. And then we got to put a button in here to submit all that. So normally I'd line all these up, but I don't want to take time in the video. So we'll just call it submit. All right, so now let's go look at what we want to do on the there. Remember we had our attachment or our collection that we use for the attachments control, but we want a new collection for that does from our gallery. So I'm just going to call it call attachments from gallery. And we just clear it. Oops. Do a shift enter to we'll say for all. And we're going to get our gallery one dot items. And we're going to collect now, and we'll build a new one. Call that same one, attachments from gallery. And this is important because we're going to need this later. What we're going to do is we're going to build a collection. So we're going to have a title, which is from the title one control. And then we're going to build a data stream. Now we're going to need the kind of the JSON equivalent of this later. So this is where this comes from. Let's see if we can make sure the syntax of that's right. first, and then we can format that. There we go. Makes it a little easier to deal with. And then now we're going to come back to this later because we're going to call flow here. But we can't really do that till we build the flow or the Power Automate. So I'm just going to save this. We don't want to have to redo all this gyration yet. All right, so let's go over and start building our flow. Or, it's funny, after I wrote my book, they changed flow from flow to Power Automate. So we're going to do a new one, and I'm just going to do this an instant cloud flow. And this takes a little bit, but we're going to trigger it from PowerApps. And I'm going to give it share PowerApps files video so we can find it. All right. So what I like to do is just build all the variables. Now it's important that the order that we put them in here are the order that that we're going to do it inside of, that we're going to call it from PowerApps. So it's easier if we do it like the same order as our buttons or whatever. So I'm going to initialize variable. And this is going to be like an array. So I'll say var file info, so type string. And we're going to get that from PowerApps. And I like to put a comma in here, rename. And I'll just say initial. There we go. And then we're just going to do, so this is basically our JSON data that's going to come in here, and we'll do some stuff. So that's going to be our first parameter. And then the rest of the stuff is just the stuff that we are adding from there. So all these are going to be strings. And I'm going to call this email address. And again, I'll ask in PowerApps. Again, oops. Let's say set email. I know this takes a while, so you feel free to fast forward. This will be display name. Fine, you can't hit S there. You gotta do that. So you gotta ask in PowerApps again. Set variable okay. We'll just call it subject. We get the idea now. Ask in PowerApps. No, it takes a minute to rename those, but it does make it a lot easier to figure out what's going on later when you just look at the flow. And I'm going to call it body, and it's going to be string, and again we're going to ask in PowerApps, and that's going to be HTML, but turns out that doesn't have a big impact. All right, so we need one more variable, and that's going to be basically a string of all our links. Oh, and I didn't rename that one yet, but I'll do this one while I got it open, and then we'll come back to. So we'll initialize a variable, and I'll call it links list. That's a string as well. And that one just doesn't have an initial value. So this one I'll rename to set links variable. And this one will be set body. All right. So now it starts getting a little more complicated. So what we've got to do is now set our, take our variable and convert it to JSON on the, so I'm going to go data operation. We're going to compose here. And then our input, we have to go over here to expression. And we'll type in JSON like that. And then it's a little complicated, but you just gotta say variables. And then you gotta put it in quotes, the one that we want. So var file info, like that. We'll test that in a minute. So that converts it to JSON. Now this is where that second video I mentioned, you know, it's able to just use the JSON and parse it somehow without it. But Anthony and I couldn't get this to work without parsing the JSON first. So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm just going to rename that to convert to JSON. And now we're going to parse JSON. There's actually a build. And remember I said you got to convert it. So this we got to take the output. So this is basically the output of that previous one. And then, as I mentioned, my colleague Anthony Apodaca figured this part out. So I'm going to copy this. But it's just the JSON equivalent. So let me show you. So it's an array, and it's got two things, a string and a data stream. That's that base 64. And so that's the equivalent of what we're pulling out from PowerApps. So that's a key step there. All right, so let's save so far. So far, so good. Now we're going to do a scope. And whoops. So what we want to do is, remember, we're basically going to loop through each of the attachments. Okay, so we're going to apply to each. And what we're going to get is, we got to be careful. We have two things called body, but we want the one that's got this little purple deal. So that's the output from this parse JSON. Okay, and then now that we have each one of those, now we're going to do create file. So we can search there, and we're going to create the file in SharePoint. So we look for the one, and that's my samples. And then this is a little bit confusing here. In this dialog, it allows you to select folders, but you'll see in the next dialog it doesn't. So just be on the safe side. I just picked the folder path. And then this is why we had to parse that JSON. Because notice, until we had that, I didn't have the title to put that in there. So that's the name of the file. And then now this is kind of complicated as well. If I haven't lost you already, may lose you here, but there's a function, data URI. Oops, I'm not sure why it's not finding me. sometimes you get an IntelliSense, but I'm just going to copy the whole thing over here. And so it's data URI to binary, and then the items, and then this apply to each is the name of this thing with underscore. So you'll see the one that I copied was 3 because I had been playing with it. So I got to get rid of the 3, and it'll tell you if it doesn't match. And then you got to grab the data stream. So that's a little complicated as well. But if you can copy that in there, get it from the video, that'd be great. And then we want to do is create sharing link. Okay, so it's very similar. Make sure we grab the same libraries. That's where it was. See, the other one said share documents. This said documents, but it ends up being the same. And then we want to go in there and grab the item ID out of the file that we just did. And then we play it a little bit. It'd be nice if you could like limit it just to the person's email. But that's not working yet. So eventually you'll be able to do more. But we were able to just say people in this organization. All right, so we're almost done. What we got to do now is go ahead and use our variable. So we're just going to append. So I go back into variables here. So our variable here is that links list. And now we just do a little bit of HTML. So we're going to do an anchor tag. So if you have done an anchor tag, then this is the link to the file. So we got to come in here and look for the sharing link. Close the quotes. And then here's where we put the name of the file in. So we got to find that now. Name of the file. And then we close our anchor tag. And then we put a break in there so that we get a new line. Ooh, all right. Let's save this so far. All right, and this is a nice thing Anthony put in, so I'll just copy it. He just kind of did some gyrations to style it a little bit. So let's put in a new step, and we'll pose. I think that's, yeah, so it's in a data operation. And we basically set it up like that. So I copied those links in. So basically just kind of put a style tag just to make it look a little bit better. And then we insert that links list like that. I think we actually put a turn in like that. There we go. All right, so that takes care of everything, but now we still got to send the email. So let's go ahead and save so we don't lose all this. And let's now send email. There's a couple ways to do it. I want to do it in Outlook. Send an email V2. All right, so now we know where all those emails, all the stuff that we put in here. So we got to, come on. Add dynamic content. That's the email address. Subject. Where'd my subject go? Was pleased that whatever we sent it went through, but we actually want to do some more. So there's the body, but we got to kind of go. That's where we had some. So 2, and that's where our display name. And then we put some, in our real one, we'll say you have a new ticket, blah, 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 put some body in there. But here we'll just not mess with it a whole lot, but we can come in here and say files, maybe in bold. And then we put our outputs. Now that outputs is the outputs from this compose link, you know, which updated, and actually this was, I didn't rename that. Let's say that was style links. All right. Now, last thing we want to do is going to send it back to PowerApps. And we could have done some logic of whether it worked. I'm basically, if it gets to the end, I'm going to say that it worked. So I'm going to respond to the PowerApps flow. And we're going to send them a yes, no. This, I got a little bit hung up on this. I'm trying to put a true or false in there. So I found if you go in here, something about my IntelliSense isn't working right now. I have to paste it in here. Let's try that. But usually I can get that to, let me just put, I guess it's just the word true in here. Yeah, so hopefully that'll work where it just, you put it in there and it kind of makes sure that it's true. All right, so we're going to save that and let's go back to PowerApps now. Now something that bit me, so don't let it bite you, is I tried to call the flow initially from here and it wipes out this whole script that I'd already have written, so that wasn't too cool. So let's create a new button and all right, so I'm just going to leave it here because I'm going to delete it shortly. So then we go over to Power Automate and it found this one. That was my original one. So I say, oh no, I didn't want to edit it. Sorry, that's one I just had. Try that again. I just want to grab it. Yeah, and that's where it blows away your script and gives you, you know, takes away everything that was already there. So I had to hurry up and close real quick because I'd lost my data. All right, so let's go back over here. Now that I've copied how to call that. Now I'm going to set a variable. So I'll just say set flow return value, because that actually ends up being like a complex object. Then I paste that in, and then another set of JSON here. So I got to say JSON, and I got to do this collection. And I'll tell it to include binary data. And then I got to just make sure I do the rest in the same order. So email, text, display name, text, subject.text, body.html text. And let's format that. That'll also tell us that our syntax is okay. All right. And then this is how we can respond then. So we'll say, okay. If flow return value, and notice it's weird, it got rid of the capital S and it is successful. So if it is successful, we'll do a notify success. Now we'll hold it for 3,000 milliseconds. Else, do a notify error 3000. Now in the success we'd probably reset the page and all that, but it's been a long enough video already. Let's see if we format that. It looks like it's all good. So let's go ahead and put that up here and let's save again. Go ahead and publish. Let's try it right from here. We've already attached a couple. Actually, let's, yeah, I'll just overwrite them. That'd be fine. I was going to say we're going to do different ones. But we can do that. Put my email in there again. I'll say Emperor. And test 2 from video. Hope you enjoyed this video. I forgot to get rid of the default, which is why it says enjoy, enter some rich text. Get rid of that, maybe I'll make it big. All right, let's try it. Ah, error, bummer. Okay, well, that's how we test it. So let's go over to flow. Go back over here. Yeah, I did already save it. Let me be double sure again. Kind of don't like that if you've already saved it. It still prompts you that way. Oh, it does say it succeeded. That's interesting. So I did have this problem before on returning back the variable, so it's probably that true false thing. But let's see if, let's reload this. Yeah, so it did send these about a minute ago, so it did update that. So let me check my email, see if I got any email. Ah, I did actually. Let's see if, oh, interesting. It didn't put the 2 returns in there. Let's see, it did. It's like it did work, but it's something about my HTML. So let's go see if we can figure that out. But other than that, it worked. And for some reason, the true false didn't come back. So we can play with that a little bit. But let's go back and look at the flow. Maybe before we end off, we can fix that at least. So it would be in the scope. Oh yeah, the rest of my thing didn't save. It's kind of interesting that it worked at all. So this was supposed to be the end of the anchor tag, and we were supposed to put BR for a break there. All right, let's look at our return. And it does say that it sent back true, but it's a little odd. All right, let's try it again. Actually, let's do a new, let's run this from scratch too. Sometimes it can be a little weird when you just run in the editor. So let's close it here. I didn't change anything there, so I should be able to come and run it from here. And let's pick something else. Let us pick some text files from the book. Let's say test display, test subject, new info. Put it in bold. Let's see what happens there. Still got the error. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. Let's see if it fixed the, see if it put the files in there. Yep, did put the files in. Let's check the email. All right, there it is. So did the test subject to the test display. Yeah, so it fixed there. So only thing we didn't quite get was that return thing, but this video's been plenty long enough. But yeah, we can get to the two text files. So pretty much successful. So I will drop it there. It's been my longest video, I'm sure, so far, but hope that helps you guys. I did want to mention that this will be my last video of the year, my last one while I've been at the Air Force Academy. So I will be moving over to the Office of Personnel Management. So hope that be able to do some more videos there. And my colleagues there at the Air Force Academy are going to keep on great work. Anthony Apodaca, as I mentioned, did a lot of the work on this one. And Brian Gilbrecht has taken over for my position there as Academic Chief Technical Officer. So I thank them a lot, and I will see you in the new year.